The other thing that we think is critical as another first step, besides development on city-owned or private parcels, is to begin seeking grants for streetscape improvements. And these are meant to enhance the pedestrian experience along Acushnet Avenue, and they're also meant to deal with things like traffic calming, improvement of traffic, the way traffic behaves along the corridor. This is really a placemaking project, as much as it is a kind of transportation project. So our streetscape recommendations try to balance transportation questions, truck turning radii, traffic speeds, where the bus stops are, with an ability to capture back maybe more sidewalk space or outdoor cafes, or to enhance the kind of festivals that happen. So we did some extensive field trips here during the hottest months of the year, I'm remembering now. And we looked at both the pros and cons of the existing conditions. It's good, for example, to mark where cars park so they don't take 7 spaces, better parking management along the valuable parallel parking spaces, which are key for kind of a quick in and out for shopping. There's also, in front of the church, better examples of landscaping that kind of enhance the experience. And we identified, let's say, a kit of parts and strategies that might together make up a better public realm along Acushnet Avenue. And that includes things like recapturing sidewalk real estate by selectively removing parallel parking spaces to get wider sidewalks, where it might make sense for an outdoor cafe or a bus stop, let's say. Dealing with neck downs at the pedestrian crossings at the intersections to create a perception that the street is narrower there for pedestrians to cross back and forth, to not prioritize cars over people. And to deal with selectively street plantings and street furniture to make it a much more kind of a user-friendly landscape. And as part of our study, we collected kind of best practices for paving materials, streetscape approaches, bicycle racks. I'm not going to go through this in detail now, but I'm going to show you just a couple of slides to show you some examples of paving, for example, in some cases that might be pervious, which means that we can send less stormwater into the storm drains to deal with stormwater flows, or to deal with more attractive paving patterns as they might happen along the avenue. One of the things that we're recommending is to create what's called a continuity strip, a different paving detail right next to the curb that collects the street tree grates, that collects the bike racks, that collects the mailboxes and the bus stops, to begin to organize some of the street furniture along Acushnet Avenue. And to really enhance those points at the intersections where crosswalks happen, where you can do curb extensions into the zone where the parallel parking happens to get what's called neck downs between 2 sides of the street, and even look for ways that we can unify with paving the pedestrian experience across both sides of the street. And even less expensive options that might deal with some of the energy of the street as well, by using simple things like a paint or a thermoplastic technologies which are used in Huntington Avenue in Boston to create vibrant patterns instead of paving, maybe, to deal with some of these issues. I feel like this one in particular is pretty good. And then getting a standard for the street for street furniture, so that the garbage cans, the bicycle racks, maybe even a different way to deal with metering, if we can find the right grant monies for this, might make it a more attractive destination for pedestrians to come. And also streetlights too. So that gives you an idea about, let's say, what our palette might be for thinking about the study area as a single kind of placemaking exercise, and planting as well. These are fancy stormwater solutions in Portland, Oregon, where they don't have snow plowing and salt and sand, so it's a little easier to do it there. You guys will find solutions for our climate as well. The other issue too is the quality of the storefront design, and this was an issue a little bit when we had the meeting with the department heads, which is that we're not suggesting turn Acushnet Avenue into downtown New Bedford, or a kind of gentrified version of what a retail street should be. We actually fully support the vibrancy of the current shop owners, the variety of shops. This is the downtown storefront design. This is a map of the variety of materials that make up the shop fronts. And we would rather leverage the kinds of variety of signs, graphics, materials, and actually enhance that as much as possible, not turn it into a kind of perfect thing that Acushnet Avenue isn't. And so we actually like and celebrate this kind of variety, and actually even kind of drew it ourselves as part of our plan. So I don't know how you enhance what already happens naturally, but it would be nice if strong graphic ideas for signs, for the difference along the street was part of the kind of logic of the future of the storefronts, if that makes sense. And then streetscape case studies. What we ended up doing then was we ended up dissecting Acushnet Avenue based on the kinds of intersections that are there. What's amazing about the stretch of Acushnet Avenue is the blocks are very small, and there are a million intersections. And in a way, that adds to the vitality of the street, because there are lots of cross streets coming in. The grain of the residential community plugging into the street happens quite often, and that's, I think, why historically the street's always been so successful. It's got a very strong tie back to the neighborhood physically. And what we ended up doing was identifying two kinds of intersections. Primary intersections, which have to do with more important cross streets that run all the way back to the park to the east or back to the west, and then secondary intersections. So the blue ones are secondary, the green ones are primary. But we also focused on how important that threshold was into the neighborhood itself. Coming off 195, coming from the downtown area and coming in. So we ended up taking one of each of those conditions, and we literally took them out for a full design test drive just to see what the opportunities were. So we've moved in from a kind of planning logic to a design logic. So for example, so we looked at this secondary intersection, this mid-block condition, this primary intersection, where parking lots actually meet the sidewalk, which we thought required some attention, and then what the gateway might be as a kind of experience coming into the neighborhood. I told you this was long, and I apologize.
No, it's great.
Is it okay?
Yeah, it's great.
Keep going?
Yeah.
I can stop at any time. So in case of the secondary intersection, we looked at Phillips and Acushnet here. And what we ended up doing was redrawing the intersection as a kind of line drawing so that we could diagram what the opportunities were. And the first one was to rethink the crosswalk, its relationship to the handicap access apron, to make that a better experience. And it all comes down to, in terms of logics, the curb extension, which is to take this real estate back, which is the parallel parking zone, and bring the sidewalk out into it on roughly a 45-degree angle, if that makes sense. And what that means is that you get two different crosswalks leaving from that same area instead of one awkward 45-degree angle that comes down, but then it has to go in both directions. So what you're seeing is that this piece of real estate has come back out into the street to make that a much more pedestrian-focused intersection. And then you can do that where opportunity might suggest, because there's a logical candidate for an outdoor cafe. It then allows for an outdoor cafe to happen and people to walk by. It might also be a place where there's a bus stop or just benches. I think that when this is rolled out as an actual project, it would be done quite opportunistically. And I think that where those happen against the balance of parking that's left would be negotiated block by block, which is another project for all of you, I would assume. But I wanted to show that this is about how you negotiate the real estate of the public realm. How much do you give to cars? And by cars, I mean both travel lanes and parallel parking spaces, and how much you give back to people. And this is, in a way, the primary strategy that we're talking about.